Hello everyone, Miss Carrie here. Today I'm partnering with Trinity Stamps to show you a festive fall card that you can create using your favorite dyes and inks. I've gathered some items from Trinity Stamps for my design. Some are new and others have been around for a while, so you might have them in your collection. This adorable mix of mini mugs was just released for the holiday season. There are some great treat bags or tags that you could make with these for Christmas. Now, I'm not quite ready to start making a bunch of holiday cards, so I've decided to stick with a fall design for my project. I am going to be using a few of the fall leaf shapes from the garden set for this card. I like the stitching detail on these. For my sentiment, I'm going to bring in the A Latte Love collection. There are multiple phrases that you can build with this stamp collection. As I create my project, I'll bring in a few additional supplies. In the description below is a list of the items I'm using along with a link to the Trinity Stamps site. Let's get started with the project. To save some time, I've already cut out the parts and pieces for this card. I have a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch piece of cardstock that will sit on top of an A2 card base. I also have a larger piece of pattern paper cut at 4 inches by 5 1/4 and a smaller pattern strip that's been cut at 4 inches by 1 3/4. I've also brought in some decorative elements. I have 2 scallop borders and this scallop rectangle. I introduced this new die in my nativity card project. The Emergency Card Essentials set is ideal for those of you who enjoy adding layers to your cards. The Trinity Stamps team has already shared a few projects with these, and we can't wait to show you some more. So here is that scallop border die and the scallop rectangle that I'm using. From some white mixed media paper, I have cut 2 of the mini mugs and a few fall leaf shapes. I saved one of the negative cuts because I want to show you how to use this to decorate the inside of the card. Before we assemble the pieces, I want to add a little bit of color to the leaves and the coffee mugs, so I've gathered a few ink pads from my collection to complete this task. I'm going to use a sticky mat to hold these shapes in place, and then I'll bring in some Distress Oxide inks to create a mix of fall colors on the leaf shapes. When I blend colors together, I like to start with the lighter hues. For my yellow leaves, I'm going to start with scattered straw, and then I'll bring in some fossilized amber. To prevent unwanted blobs of ink, I like to tap my brush inside of the lid before I start blending the colors together. Now, it's always a good idea to come back in with a lighter color and blend the two together. This softens the harsh lines and creates a nice fade between the two colors. Now, the best part about fall leaves is that they don't have to be perfect. Leaves here in Colorado are a wide range of colors, and as they change, you can see bits of green, some yellow, brown, orange, and red. For the large leaves, I'm going to blend Spiced Marmalade, Rusty Hinge, and Abandoned Coral. Again, I'm starting with the lighter color first, and then I'll blend in some of the darker ones. All right, now that our leaves are done, let's add some color to the mini mugs. When I color in coffee mugs with alcohol markers, I add a shadow to the edges to make them look cylindrical. To achieve the same look with ink, I'm going to use this tiny blending brush and swipe my ink diagonally across the die cut. The majority of the ink stays on the edge of the die cut, and it lightens as it goes across the rest of the image. As I'm adding color to the second mini mug, I want to let you know that that green mug is not going to be used on the card. I had planned on bringing in a little bit of green, but it didn't work with the other colors. So as I create the project, you're actually going to see me bring in a little mug that's shaded with espresso ink. Now, normally I edit things like this out, but I think it's good for you to see that, like many of you, I don't always have a clear plan when I start making a project. I'm going to spritz a little bit of water over the ink. Distress oxides react with water, and as they dry, it's going to create a lighter color where the water droplets sat. I'm also going to bring in a little bit of spatter with some white paint. This is a fun way to add texture and a variety of color to your leaf images. To match this look, I'm also going to spatter my large card panel with paint. This is going to help create a cohesive design. Of course, you are welcome to skip this part if you wish. As these dry, I'm going to stamp my sentiment. The words I'm using are going to take up the entire space of the rectangle, so I'm using another sticky mat to hold the cardstock in place. As I quickly stamp the words, I would love it if you took a moment to let me know you're enjoying today's project by tapping the thumbs up icon or leaving me a comment below. It's also greatly appreciated when you subscribe to channels as well. These actions help us reach more creators like you with weekly inspiration and paper crafting projects. With espresso ink, I'm going to quickly stamp the word thanks, and then I'm going to lay the card base flat on my glass board and place this little die cut piece in the corner of my card. I'm going to use some repositionable mint tape to hold it in place, and then I'll bring in the inks that I used previously and use this just like a stencil. I'm going to start with a lighter color because I want to layer a darker color over the front. Since this is cut from mixed media paper, it's going to hold up really well. Now, once all of those leaves are in place, I'm going to bring in a coffee colored pen and add a little detailing. What I've just shared with you can be done on the outside of your cards too. You can use this to create a lovely leaf background, a single leaf image that you could stamp a sentiment on, or create a stenciled border on the edge of a card. It's just another fun way to use those dies that you have in your collection. With the Distress Oxide inks and spatter already added, I feel like this card needs a little distressing. The background is white core cardstock, so I'm just going to run a nail file along the edges. I'm going to adhere this to my card base, and then I'll create that same distressed edge on the floral pattern strip and that large pattern panel. If you want to distress it even more, you could add ink to the edges. I want mine to look more like worn fabric, so I'm just going to stop here and adhere everything to the card base. The two scallop borders are cut larger than needed so that I could lay the scallop pattern evenly on the edges. If you wanted to add some stitching, twine, or ribbon, the spot where these borders sit would be a great place to do so. I'm going to trim these up real fast and finish adhering everything to the card base. When I initially placed the sentiment on the card, it felt lost in all of the leaves that I started to add, so I did cut another scallop rectangle from coffee cardstock and layered the two together. As I mentioned earlier, I also changed the color of the larger mini mug from green to espresso. With no other green on this card, it was really out of place. I'm going to finish off this space with a little twine bow over the top of the mini mug, and then I'll bring in some more antique pink to color in my letters. I'm going to go ahead and finish shading these, and then I'll share the finished project with you. Here's the card we created today. It has some fun fabric-like patterns, layers of leaves, and scallop details that are just too much fun. On the inside of the card, I shared some ways that you can use a leaf die to create a stencil, and I really like how this turned out. I hope that you enjoyed today's tutorial and learned some new ways to use your dies from Trinity Stamps. If you have any questions about the project or supplies I used, feel free to post those in the comments below. For more creative ideas, you can follow Miss Carrie's Creations online or join the Trinity Stamps Inspiration Group on Facebook. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I can't wait to see what you create.